satisfying as a fan. But Michael, let's talk about the final. Um, you know, comparing both teams, for once, India can boast of a very good bowling attack, a fast bowling attack themselves. So, in terms of comparison, I think it's fair to say that both sides have a good set of bowlers, and the only thing that might actually distinguish the two teams from each other might be uh, New Zealand's batting against swing in those conditions. So, would you say that's a fair assessment, or do you think it's going to be different?
I don't know. Look, I have no idea how that World Test Championship final is going to go, and that's the beautiful thing. I mean, I can see a dozen different scenarios in my head as to who's going to be dominated. One of the things, New Zealand, this is New Zealand's first game that we're recording this in the middle of the first test between New Zealand and England. And this is the first game we've played with a Duke's ball since, I think, 2015 or 2016.
2015.
We don't tour England. We don't tour Indies very often. So, because of that, I think India have played 11 matches with the Duke's ball in the time since New Zealand last played one. So our bowlers aren't used to playing with it. And that's a big disadvantage. And our batsmen aren't used to facing it. So these two matches were vital for New Zealand. I think without them, we would have really not had a shot. It's really interesting to see. I wonder whether actually the difference is New Zealand's lower order batting. So the batting at numbers 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, where New Zealand have got, at the moment in the current lineup, every player in the top 9, I think, has got a century, and every player in the 11 has got a 50. New Zealand batting averaging, I did look it up at one point, I can't remember off the top of my head, but from numbers 6, 7, 8, and 9 combined, average over 40 for New Zealand in the last few years. And so, whereas no other team, from memory, no other team was over 32. So that's a huge difference in terms of New Zealand bowlers to bat. Jamieson, Southey, even Wagener can hold a bat. Santner, de Grandhomme, Mitchell. These guys are all able to hit centuries, 50s, and maybe the batting evens out, the bowling evens out, but the batting of the bowlers could be the difference.
That's a fascinating point because, as conditions become more difficult, it gets harder to start. So that's what you see in the past 6 years of Test cricket, right? So it's getting harder to start an innings for top order batsmen. So that lower order might make the difference, like you said. That's a fascinating point. And I don't think people focus on that when they talk about comparing the teams.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we've seen for New Zealand, one of the key people in New Zealand's rise has been Colin de Grandhomme. Colin de Grandhomme and BJ Watling. That sort of combination of those two. BJ Watling, the dour defensive, backs to the wall, I'll dig us out of a hole player. And then the Colin de Grandhomme is really very much a bully of tired bowlers. I did do some stats on this. In the first 70 overs of a match, de Grandhomme averages 25 at a strike rate of about 60. After over 70, the times after there, he averages 46 at a strike rate of 108. So if you can hold off until the bowlers are tired and then get de Grandhomme in, it's not guaranteed to succeed, but more often than not, he's actually, average 46, a strike rate 100. That's a player who destroys teams, and having that coming in at number 7 and number 8, potentially just he can turn and get the match around, and he's done it a few times. The West Indies, one of the matches was looking fairly even when all of a sudden de Grandhomme came in and hit 100 off about 110, and all of a sudden New Zealand, instead of looking at 350, was suddenly over 500. And there was no chance for West Indies really to come back from such a big score on a difficult pitch, as their bowlers got tired and then he just destroyed them. And it was disheartening. You could see their heads dropping every time a ball had disappeared. It was taking a little bit of their heart with it. And so that sort of lower order hitting that New Zealand have could be potentially the difference.